Welcome to Local Matters. Are you stressed out? We're all feeling it to some extent, right? Which is why Julie invited licensed mental health counselor Leslie Cutler back on the show to talk about coping strategies for the stressors of life, especially when they're exacerbated by a global pandemic, national election, and an economic crisis. Here are Julie and Leslie.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. You know, there's a lot of tension right now in our society, in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our towns, cities, and even in our country. With it being an election year, political demonstrations, right, left, green, blue, all the things are just, nobody seems to be getting along.
Yes.
Do you have any advice to us during this rather tense time?
Oh, I do, Julie. And, as if the holidays don't present enough stress in and of themselves, we have so many more things piled on top this year, which make things incredibly difficult. And, I realize that we all have these kind of maladaptive ways of worrying and sort of dealing with some of these differences and some of this tension. And it's, worrying, thinking that that's going to produce a certain amount of a result. It's sort of validation from others. So if you or I have a different opinion, then I'm going to access all the sources that I have that have similar opinions to me and just keep seeking validation from that. And there's a certain amount of letting go that we need to practice. We're not going to change our families' perspectives by having a very animated conversation over Thanksgiving dinner, but there's a certain acceptance of what is will be. And just learning to maybe keep certain topics off the Thanksgiving dinner table or the Christmas dinner table or whatever holiday you celebrate. And just know that at the end of the day, we have our health, we have our safety, and these are the important things that matter in this moment.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Good sage advice. And a lot of people won't be able to see their families during this holiday season due to social distancing, traveling, and people might feel a sense of loss and really depression. How do we get through those feelings?
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, because I was thinking as I was putting together some thoughts for this that, January 1st, 2020 of this year, as we were all celebrating the new year, none of us would have ever imagined that this year would look like this. And there's just so much uncertainty. And, I think we don't realize what our expectations are until they're not met. I mean, we all imagine ourselves celebrating with our family. And, the desire to do this is great because things have been so turned upside down that we want to run to what's familiar. But it's important to keep in mind that there are certain things that we're not going to be doing this year. And maybe there are other ways around it, recognizing, of course, that this is a very, very temporary thing. And for just this one time, we need to make an exception in order to keep moving forward in a healthy way.
And how do we keep ourselves from getting angry at people who aren't following the same guidelines or suggestions that we are following?
Well, I hear this every day in my office because I have situations where there are two people living together and one is of compromised immunity and the other one is out doing whatever and not feeling the same level of fear. So, we all have different ways of kind of managing this uncertainty and a lot of this kind of unknown. So the best thing is to take the information that we have and maybe draw up some compromises. Listen, I understand that you're going to do this year, but please know as a result of that, I'm going to do X, Y, Z in return. And sometimes these compromises can be made, but sometimes they can't. And when it gets to that point, you need to really take care of your own safety. And, I've had clients that's had to move out of their apartments in the city and go live with family temporarily or, stay somewhere else because they couldn't come to that agreement. But of course, it is always a challenge, and communication is absolutely key on this.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, great advice.
Yes.
And self-care is really important. You have to take care of yourself and be comfortable with what you're doing. And in this year that's already so rough for everybody,
Yes.
and everybody's mindset is just all over the place. I know you have 5 basic tips
Yes.
for folks trying to get through the holidays. And number 1 is take action over the things you can control. Talk about that.
So there's a part of all of us that likes a certain amount of stability, of calm. And of course, there's a variation on this. We all have those friends that love to dive off of cliffs and bungee jump. And then we have people that in our lives that are the total opposite and prefer to stay home. And I get that. So we have different levels of tolerance in this. But if we're really struggling with feeling like things are out of our control and that this uncertainty is more than we can manage, we need to take the things in our lives that we can manage. Let's say, for an example, you're out of work and you're having major anxiety about, how am I going to feed my family? What am I going to do? There are certain things that you can do in that situation to manage it. You can, hit up local resources. You can, send out your resume, connect with friends and colleagues and network and that sort of thing. The same thing with the virus. It's like, yes, we can control how we are within this. So we take the pieces that we can manage and we hold on to them tightly. And perhaps we sit with some of the other uncertainties and not put on a brave face and pretend that everything is fine, because those feelings will then manifest its way in anxiety and depression. So it's kind of recognizing what it is, facing our feelings, realizing we can do what we can do, and then the rest just needs to be released.
Right. So just the things you can control them. And the other things, just take a deep breath, and this will not be forever, basically.
Yes. So true. Absolutely.
I love the second one, which is challenge your need for certainty. Talk about that.
And I see this so often, not only in business, but also at home. There's this piece of us that constantly seeks reassurance from others, constantly needing validation. Is this decision okay? Am I making the right choice? This type of thing. And this gets played out also in the way that, some bosses like to micromanage their employees because they feel like they've got a better control of things. If they do it a certain way and they don't release it, there's also shows itself in the way of procrastination, of choosing not to make a decision because decisions are too terrifying and then they have to deal with the results. But, we need to think about the advantages and the disadvantages of uncertainty. Life is full of surprises, and there are certain things that we can't anticipate for. But for every negative thing that happens, there's always a positive thing that happens. We might get, a dream job, and there's a certain surrendering that we have to do because there's no absolutes in life. I mean, every time we get behind the wheel, there's a certain release that we're trying to do. We've got to believe that the brakes are going to work today, that the car isn't going to come flying towards us. Or we go to a restaurant and we have to believe that the food is safe. So there's a certain amount of things in life that we have no control over. So it's important to kind of recognize these things and say, you know what? I deal with a lot of uncertainty on a regular basis, and I have the coping skills to kind of navigate these things.
Right. And the old adage, the only thing that's absolutely certain are death and taxes. Other than that, it's up in the air. So that was your need for certainty. So how do we learn to really accept and live through uncertainty?
Well, that's a bit of a challenge too. I always remind my clients, I say, you've managed these types of uncertainties before, and you've had all the necessary tools to navigate them. And at some point, you just have to trust your own coping skills. Recognize what your triggers are as well. If sitting in front of the news 24/7 on a solid loop is triggering you in some way, well, clearly that's not going to be helpful for you. Or if you're spending a ridiculous amount of time on social media, reading stories that might be true or might not be true, that is not helpful. So recognize your triggers and then recognize that it's okay. Feel it in your body. Recognize where it is. For me, it's holding my jaw tight. I realize I put my shoulders up often and I'm spending the day with clenched fist, tight jaw and shoulders up. And this tells my body that I'm in absolute panic and it needs to step up everything. And that is not the case at all. This is a long-term thing. We're in month 9 of a pandemic. We're in the middle of major political upheaval. It's going to change. This too will pass. Recognizing that and ask, what is it that I'm required to do in this moment? And I always bring it back to the present so that I'm not obsessing about the future. So right now, it's you and me, and we're having this conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do this now and be completely present. And then later on, I will approach the next item like that. And so to continue to be mindful and aware.
Right. So that kind of goes into your fourth point, which was focus on the present. And just to backtrack one sec, on the idea of uncertainty, I know my kids, they both live in California. They're 27 and 30 years old. And they, of course, have never seen anything like this. None of us have.
Right.
And I always go back to the fact that most people are good people. And we have brilliant people in this world. Just the fact that this vaccine is being developed so quickly, lightning speed versus anything that's ever been done in the past.
Right.
To me, that gives me great hope. And the fact that if your neighbor cries for help, you run over to help them.
Yes.
There's good people in this world, and I don't think they're going away anytime soon. So let's talk about then focusing on the present, which was your fourth point.
Yes. Yeah. And when you're saying that, I'm thinking, if somebody's crying for help, you're not asking them their political affiliation. There's something in all of us that will dive in, offer the skills that we have and help when necessary. And there's a certain amount of that we need to sort of, bring to the surface as a reminder that at the end of the day, we are all fully connected on some level. But, in talking about mindfulness, I find it's really helpful to, for myself, is to have a regular routine. No matter what's going on that day, I try to keep, this regular hike with my dog Smudge a part of my day. And I pay close attention to, the rhythm of my feet hitting the ground, the leaves underneath, and try to pay attention. I leave my phone at home. I check in with myself and my body, and I'm dealing with the immediate and the now. And it's too easy to get distracted into all these other things. But this worry is not going to solve anything whatsoever. It will only make it worse for myself. So, just keep with the familiar, keep with the regular day-to-day is probably going to be one of the biggest ways to manage anxiety.
Right. Just one day at a time. Just take it as it comes and do what you have to do to get through that day, because there's always tomorrow, and tomorrow is going to be better and brighter. And your first thing is actually, how do you manage your stress and what's the best way to do that?
So, like I said, anxiety is best managed through regular exercise. And, you don't need to go to the gym and, do a full-blown workout, but it's really just about getting out in nature. Nature is, our natural serotonin lift, get moving. Maybe take some time for relaxation in the day, perhaps even some meditation. And of course, as always, watching our diet and getting plenty of sleep. And I know these things are beaten into all of our heads, and, it's exhausting kind of hearing them, but there's really something to them. And they are key in terms of helping and creating a sense of calm in all of this uncertainty.
Right. And it doesn't cost anything to take a walk.
No, it does not.
Or to leave your phone at home and just unhook for a while. I totally agree with you.
Yes.
And for people who have been able to continue working, I think they're working more hours, harder, for less, really for less, like the restaurants, for example. I feel horribly for everyone in that industry right now, because they are really, really suffering. But you see them every day coming up with new ideas, new ways to make it work until we get on the other side of this thing. So hope springs eternal. Absolutely.
Absolutely, it does. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And it forces us to be a little kinder to those out on the front lines who are just, working so hard and have done this for 9 months in, while so many other people have the luxury of being at home and being able to be safe within their homes. So,
and yet a lot of people would say it's not been a luxury to be at home. that's they find just as stressful as if they had to go to work, if not more so, especially the parents that have to suddenly become teachers, which must be horribly stressful if you're not used to that.
Right, right. And trying to juggle at-home work with children can be quite a challenge, especially for, single parents. And I'm, preaching here to my own choir, but yeah, it's a challenge. And, it's not always going to be perfect.
Right,
and it's
right.
okay to say, you know what? We're done for today,
right,
because this is all we can do.
Right.
And we're going to give it our best shot tomorrow, but we will revisit it once again and go from there.
Right. And I know you said you are busier than you have ever been as a licensed mental health counselor. What is the best way for people to get in touch with any counselor if they feel they really need one?
Yeah, I think everybody's really busy right now because the world in general is feeling a lot of stress and anxiety. I really like going to psychology.com. They have a list of therapists on there. You can type in, what you're looking for, male, female, a certain type of person that specializes in any particular thing. And they will bring up a number of people, not only in your area, but also those who offer telehealth as well. You can search by insurance. You can search by, a number of criteria. And that's a great place to start. So I highly recommend that.
That's wonderful, wonderful advice. And you're right. We've heard from a lot of people that they wanted to get appointments and there are just no appointments available because I don't think there's anybody out here in this world that isn't at least a little bit stressed right now.
Yes, myself included. So, we're all in this.
All of us. And like you said, one day at a time, do the best you can and self-care. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone around you.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Leslie, as always, wonderful advice, sage advice from a wonderful woman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Julie. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Leslie. It's good to remind ourselves that we're not powerless or alone in how we feel. The 5th annual America's Hometown Throwdown Chef Competition is coming to you virtually on December 7th, beginning at 7 p.m. Tune in to Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or PAC TV to see local chefs battle it out in a friendly competition to see who's the best of the best. Mayflower Brewing Company is hosting this popular event with Hawk Visuals, which for the 3rd year in a row will support the South Shore Community Action Council's Food Resources Program, providing food relief for hungry people throughout the South Shore. This year's participating restaurants are Cork and Table, Lobster Trap, Malabar Brasserie, Mirbeau Inn and Spa, Salt Raw Bar and Fine Cuisine, and Sukasa. For more information, visit mayflowerbrewing.com. Santa Claus wants to do something special for our community, and he reached out to the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce with a great idea. Since children love receiving their own mail, why not make it even more magical with a special handwritten letter from Santa? What a fun surprise and keepsake for the special child or children in your life. To help support our local chamber and small businesses, Santa asks that you make a small donation to the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce when you order. Forms are available at plymouthchamber.com. Orders will be accepted until December 11th, and letters will be mailed out beginning December 15th. Join the Kingston Historical Commission for a virtual presentation of Kingston's historical old burying ground and a review of its recently completed preservation master plan. Consultant Martha Lyon of Martha Lyon Landscape Architecture and her associates from Fannin Leonard Preservation Consultants will review findings of their historical research on the cemetery, its graves and tombs, and the stone carvers who made them. They'll also report on the current condition of the old burying ground and recommendations made to restore and help preserve Kingston's historical site well into the future. This Zoom meeting presentation is on December 9th at 7 p.m. and will be facilitated by the Kingston Public Library. To register, visit the library's website. The American Legion Post 40 needs your help to stuff a bus for veterans. The New England Center and Home for Veterans is a service and care provider helping veterans at risk of or facing homelessness. On Saturday, December 5th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., bring your donations to 199 Federal Furnace Road in Plymouth. New items like winter coats, blankets, socks, scarves, winter hats, pajamas, sweatpants, and underwear are greatly needed. And gift cards are always appreciated. Life in 2020 has put the word essential into heavy rotation. Essential workers, essential travel, essential services. Has it also changed the way we think about what is essential in our lives? Join the Boston Public Library for the virtual program Living Room Conversations, What is Essential? Facilitated by library staff, you'll take turns talking to share and learn, communicating across differences while building understanding and, hopefully, relationships. The goal is to respect, relate, and connect. Mark your calendar for Friday, December 11th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Registration is required. Visit computerworkshops@bpl.org. Jen Matney is back with an all-new Food Positive, and this time she's giving out some tips on how to stay healthy during the holidays.
Hello and welcome back to Food Positive, where we explore all different nutrition topics so that we can take a preventative look at health and use food as medicine. Now, the holidays are officially upon us. You might have celebrated a day of thanks at some point this week. You might do so this weekend, and Christmas will be here before we know it. We want to make sure everyone stays healthy this year, so please make sure you're wearing your masks, you're socially distancing, you're following all CDC guidelines to help prevent the spread of coronavirus. And while this year is determined to be different from years past, let's take a look at 5 tips for healthy holidays so we can take care of our health, we can take care of our bodies as we celebrate. So tip number 1 is be food positive. Be food positive, that's what we do. So for those of you who might not remember, who might be unaware, food positivity means actively consuming those foods your body needs. Being food positive also means creating and maintaining a positive relationship with food. Now, we often discuss food in terms of good or bad, like good food to eat is kale or bad food to eat is sugar. And we often do that because it helps us label and it helps us to feel confident that we know more about basic nutrition, right? But labeling those foods good or bad means that we put that judgment on ourselves. A food is just a food, an apple is just an apple. And removing the judgment from the food means we can remove that judgment from ourselves. For some of us during the holiday, we might feel a little bit of shame or a little bit of guilt if we're not consuming those foods that have been prepared for us. And some of us may even experience a little bit of pushback from loved ones about why we're choosing certain health options. So we want to maintain our food positivity. We want to choose those foods that are right for us at this point in our health journey because they're optimal for our health or because we are in a place we're happy to indulge and consume a treat. So stay food positive. Stick to your what works for you and be food positive during this holiday season. Tip number 2 is make a plan. Planning allows you to stay on whatever track works best for you. You might have heard someone say, I'm so excited for what I'm doing for my health. I'm right on track for all of my goals. I feel great. Oh, but the holidays are coming up. So I guess I'll just have to put everything on the back burner until the new year. You might even have felt that way yourself, but the holiday season is actually a really great time to start a health journey or to continue a health journey because it allows us to flex that mental muscle and make a game plan. You know you're going to an event. You know there's going to be some overeating, possibly some overindulging. So make a plan of what you're going to do that day to prepare, how you might indulge that day, and what you're going to be doing to get yourself right back on track the next day. Even take the time to work through how you might respond to a family member or a loved one if they press you on your health choices. Working through that moment ahead of time will allow you to vent any anxiety or stress you might have about the interaction, and will make that interaction that much more seamless when the time comes. So decide what works for you this holiday season, make a game plan, and stick to it. Tip number 3 is eat before. So that whole day before your event, make sure you are choosing whole food, nutrient-dense options. Maybe for breakfast, you might have a green smoothie or some raw fruit and nuts. You might have a salad for lunch. You might even take some raw veggies over for the snack on the ride over to the event. And definitely make sure that you are drinking plenty of water. Because when we arrive to these events dehydrated or hungry, we are more likely to overfill our plates or even fill a second plate. And when we consume all of that food, especially quickly, our eyes are so big, we're looking at the smorgasbord and we just eat so quickly. Whenever we do that, we then feel the fatigue and the sluggishness and the bloating. So eat before and make sure you consume good, healthy options throughout the day. Now, tip number 4 is bring along. You're standing in front of the holiday spread at your holiday event. You might be struggling to find some foods that are made with whole foods or are nutrient dense. So why not bring something along? Find your favorite holiday food and remake it with health in mind. For example, you might bring mashed sweet potatoes instead of mashed white potatoes. Or you could bring a mixed green autumn salad for a bit of green on your plate. And not only will you be bringing those healthy foods to fill your plate at the holiday function, but a loved one might get to try and love a food in the process. So bring your healthy holiday options to the get-together. Tip number 5 is eat 85-15. Now, some of you might remember the 85-15 mantra from past Food Positive episodes. And 85-15 is a mantra where our nutrition plans should contain about 85% of health building foods and maybe 15% or less of those health breaking foods. Because what we want in our nutrition plan is something that will work for life, a habit that we form for life. And having the 85-15 rule means it's not overly restrictive, because those of you out there who have done overly restrictive elimination diets, you will be able to tell everyone else how unfeasible and impossible it can be to incorporate that into your life full time. So stick to the 85-15 mantra and choose an indulgence for your holiday event. Maybe that's the pumpkin pie, maybe that's a green bean casserole side, maybe it's a roll. Whatever works for you, choose an indulgence, eat 85-15, and really savor the holiday in your healthy eating. So there you have it, 5 healthy tips for healthy holidays. 1, be food positive and make choices for you based on where you're at in your health journey. 2, make a plan and stick to it. 3, eat those healthy foods throughout the day before your event. 4, bring something along so everyone can share in those healthy options for the holidays. And 5, use the 85-15 eating mantra so that you can choose an indulgence and really savor the holiday spirit this year. And if you have any nutrition or health topics you'd like us to cover here on Food Positive, please send your questions over to the local scene at PAC TV. We would really love to tackle those topics that mean the most to you.
Great tips as always. Thanks, Jen. There are amazing animals in your own backyard, and Dr. Zach Mertz from the New England Wildlife Center wants to tell you all about them. In this virtual program geared to elementary school-age kids and their parents, Dr. Zach will explore what kinds of animals are living in your neighborhood and how he and other volunteers at the Wildlife Center care for wild animals who need help. The December 8th program runs from 4 to 5 p.m. Register via the Kingston Public Library website. Planning funeral arrangements during normal times is an emotional and draining process, but during a pandemic, it becomes even more daunting. Julie invited Robert Stockwell, the owner and director of Randall Mulvey Funeral Home and Southeast Funeral Home and Cremation Services, via Zoom, to give us some insight into how loved ones are navigating this process.
Welcome, Robert. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're a funeral director, and mortuary science seems like a very interesting career path. And I'm wondering, how did you get involved in this?
So not everybody generally just wakes up and says that, I want to be a funeral director. Generally, you usually have family in the business, or someone that works at a funeral home. It just so happens I knew someone that worked at a funeral home, so I grew up around it, and I've always been compassionate, and I've always liked dressing nice. So, something that I've always wanted to do.
So it was a good fit. Yeah.
It was a good fit. Yes.
Now, you're in an industry that a lot of people would not choose. How has this been rewarding to you?
So it's actually very rewarding. Being able to comfort someone during an arrangement conference and walk them through the whole process, it's extremely rewarding. There's different aspects of making arrangements, the process of the preparation, and when somebody's sick, they're going through a lot. It could be 2 to 6 months somebody's on hospice, so that takes quite a toll on someone, especially the deceased. So being able to prepare someone to make them look as they did before they were sick, and just seeing the family's expression on their face is extremely comforting.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're really a counselor to them too for their grief, which is great. Now, what kind of precautions during COVID-19 are you taking for yourself and your staff?
So we take our staff's temperature every day that they come in. A lot of hand washing, a lot of social distancing, just the everyday things that you have to do to stay safe. And we have barriers for the families and also our staff as well, and a lot of digital online arrangements that helps our staff as well, so they don't have to see as many people.
Now, do a lot of people I know of funerals I've been to, there's like a video or a slideshow that kind of outlines a person's life. Is that being done still, or is that being done more online?
Yeah, so we do it during the visitation. We have several TVs that are on the wall that we can put a lot of different photos on, and it actually goes on our website as well. So it really tells a great story of that person's life. It's something that I recommend to all families to do. We make it very easy for them to be able to do it too, uploading all the pictures, and
sure,
a lot of people.
You do that for them. You just take that burden away from them, and you put it together, which is wonderful. What kind of limitations do you have in terms of indoor wakes at this point?
So it's lightened up a little bit. Back in June, we could only have 10 people at a time in the building, and that's very difficult for a family. Right now, we can have 40% of our occupancy, just like church. So, other than that, all the restrictions, such as social distancing, we just keep a count on how many people we have in the building at a time. And people will kind of go in one way, and then go out of the funeral home a different way. So it keeps everybody distant.
Okay, and everybody keeps 6 feet apart as they're in the facility. That's good. Now, what about this is an odd question, but has the number of deaths that you've been servicing increased greatly over the last 9 months from the same time frame in years past?
It has. It's increased quite a bit. Not so much now, but when COVID first came out, it was drastically, I bet it doubled in numbers for us. So it was very busy when COVID first hit. Not so much now.
Were those all COVID-related deaths?
Most of them were COVID-related deaths. But again, it doesn't seem, we don't get as many COVID deaths now. So,
which is good news.
It is, yes.
Overall,
it is. I know you see the numbers going up for people that are getting sick, but luckily not as many people are dying from it.
Right, exactly. And finally, how are you able to provide comfort to people, not only during the process, but is there anything afterwards?
We have a lot of aftercare for grief counseling, and we just try to make everything as easy as possible to comfort the family. Again, with the live streaming, the services, the videos stay up on our website, online guest book. Families need that kind of stuff.
Of course they do.
They need the support of other family members and friends. That's what they're used to.
Absolutely. And are many people wanting to defer this actual process, like to hold off on having a service or interning their loved ones if they choose to do that?
Some people are, not as many as you would think, because we can have 40% of our capacity. That really does help. So people kind of come in, pay their respects, and then they usually go right out. So that gives everybody a chance to be able to pay their respects and comfort the family.
And if anyone is going through a situation right now where they have a loved one at life's end and it's inevitable that the person will die, is there any advice you can give them about funerals and services and things like that?
Because of COVID, people aren't working, so everything is very expensive. So my recommendation is to call around and check pricing with other funeral homes. I know that seems strange to some people, but other funeral homes are a lot less expensive than different funeral homes, especially in the same area. You can have services that are half the cost of what someone else is. So I really recommend to just call around and check with different funeral homes.
And that's good advice, Robert, because now every penny counts. Like you said, there are a lot of people that aren't working. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been enlightening, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Back to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Julie, and thank you, Robert, for your insight and advice. Are you curious to learn what your handwriting says about you? Join certified graphologist Eileen Page on National Letter Writing Day to learn about the art and science of handwriting analysis. Register for the Zoom link through the Duxbury Senior Center, and you'll receive a packet to use during the presentation to help learn what you're saying through your penmanship. When is National Letter Writing Day? December 7th. The event begins at 1 p.m. The Middleborough Tourism Committee is hosting its 7th annual Festival of Lights on December 12th, 13th, 19th, and 20th from 4 to 9 p.m. Experience the all-new Candy Cane Forest and Reindeer Row as you drive through acres sparkling with over 500,000 holiday lights. It all takes place at the Boston Cape Cod KOA at 438 Plymouth Street in Middleborough. Visit discovermiddleborough.com for more information. Motherhood is one of the most challenging jobs on earth, and mothering during a pandemic, even harder. Robin Galinsky is next with her humorous take on parenting and how she's working toward being a non-essential worker as soon as possible. Enjoy.
So I've always said that we have to stop saying we're having a baby, and we need to start saying we're creating a human, or we're making a person, because that's what we're doing. Actually, what we're doing is we're putting an ad on Craigslist for a roommate, and we're taking the first person who shows up, without knowing anything about them. Not only taking them in as our roommate, but committing to being a roommate for at least the next 18 years. This starts out well and good because obviously babies are created to make you fall in love with them, and they're super cute. You get all this positive attention, but that quickly segues into those toddler years. And those toddler years, those require a level of vigilance on part of the parents that can never be described or trained for. In fact, a sniper in the middle of wartime doesn't have the level of vigilance that parents need. For toddlers who are trying to kill themselves every minute of the day with any found object they can get their hands on. Now you get a little respite after that for what I call the golden years. 6 to 11-ish years old. They become more conversational, more fun, curious, and they respect you and they look up to you and they like you. And that's awesome. But you shouldn't let your guard down because the next stage is a hazing like none other. None other. It's an abusive relationship that you enter into with this child. And you can't even prepare for it, so don't even try. If you've done a really good job of raising a critically thinking, outspoken child, you are in for a lot of trouble. And if you're the mother of a daughter, it's even next level. They are very acerbic in their assessment of your personality, and they share their assessment of you during the most inopportune moments. There's no way out. There's no 800 number you can call. You're in it. Now, that culminates in the launch. That's great. The year of proms and parties and graduation, and we're choosing colleges, and we're filling out applications, which is terrible, and college tours are terrible. But you got your eye on the prize, the bye-bye now. You might shed a tear. You might be sad for a minute. But once you realize how much this child has consumed of your mental energy, your emotional energy, and the real estate in your home, you're going to get over it pretty fast. It's pretty awesome to be back to having control over your own brain and directing it toward what you like or what you want. And then that room, what am I going to do with that room? It could be an exercise room. It could be a craft room. Oh, heck, I may empty the whole thing out and make it a meditation room. Just put a little cushion in the middle of the floor. I don't meditate, but maybe I would if I had an empty room with just a cushion in the middle of it. And all of that planning and all of those good times come to an end when you have a pandemic. And your child, who's about to be 21 in 3 weeks, moves back into that room and looks at me and says, it'd be really nice if you got the rest of your things out of this room. Out of my room is actually what she said. And I said, yeah, I got mostly everything out, but this is a temporary situation, so you can make do with what you have. Mom, this is my room. I need you to get your things out of it. Okay, this is very temporary. And she said, Mom, you haven't been paying attention. I'm here for a minimum of the next 8 months. Oh, have I not been paying attention? I did not land on me until that moment. I have a roommate now. I have a roommate who likes to sleep till 12, 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon, who likes to blast loud music, who is an expert at debate and philosophy, who's gone out into the world and developed her own thoughts and her own opinions and her own insights, and has brought them now all home to continue to assess my personality, knowing all of my vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and need for self-improvement, and share that with me on a daily basis. And I just say, I have no words. My only piece of advice to you with an adult child is if you see something, say nothing. I have yet to be able to do it. It's almost impossible. But that's all I have to offer right now. Happy pandemic.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you for staying with us for this episode of Local Matters, where everyone's story is equally important, regardless of where you come from, who you love, or who you vote for. From all of us at PAC TV, have a happy and safe week. We'll see you next time.